If you fish in the same pond, you're going to get the same fish. So what I challenged when I got to SRAM is if engineers are sort of the bread and butter of what we're trying to do, why don't we start looking to other places to find them? So the SWE Conference, Society of Women Engineers, SHEP, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. So again, there are diverse organizations that are out there. When you go on college campuses, which many companies do for many of their entry-level positions, start looking at some of the on-campus groups that are there. You've got academic sororities and fraternities. You've got student groups. Some of these universities have cycling clubs. So it's just trying to be as innovative as you are in your products, as you are in your strategy around how to bring more team members into the organization.
Welcome to Ride to Success, the podcast that takes you on a learning journey to a more productive, creative, and active life through the power of the bike. I'm your host, Pedro Couto Lopez. You can find me on LinkedIn under my own name. And on today's episode, I sit down with Angela Graff-Williams, the Vice President of Talent and Inclusion at SRAM. In this episode, you're going to hear how a single painful moment from Angela's college years became the spark for a lifelong commitment to equity, allyship, and empowerment, and how that same determination is transforming one of the most innovative companies in cycling from the inside out. If you ever felt unseen, unheard, or like the space wasn't built for you, this episode is for you. So stay with us, because you will discover how SRAM DEI revolution is opening doors to women of color, and underrepresented engineers worldwide. Why representation in cycling isn't charity, it's innovation, it's a blueprint, is necessary. And finally, how psychological safety, intentional leadership, and allyship can turn any team into a community that wins together. So let's get into this episode. Welcome, Angela, to Ride to Success. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be invited. Thank you, Pedro.
Brilliant. I wanted to start kind of going back, I guess, to your roots, where you have been working in HR for over 20 years, and I'm interested to find out, to go to the root of that. What first inspired you? Your passion for people, what first inspired you to go down this route, because you have the opportunity in the position you are to shape cultures, organizations at a global level, and that's a magnificent. It's a huge responsibility, but also comes with its own perks, I guess, of shaping a culture.
Yes. And I think what got me into HR was the ability to see the impact that the right programs can have. So at an early age, I think I ran into a situation that was a bit unfortunate, but I was going to a college, and I had a friend that went there. So as freshmen, we bonded several times throughout, our first semester. Her mom would call. She lived on campus. I did not. And so I talked to her mom all the time while she was, away or doing something. But we were pretty close. And so when Christmas break came, we both sort of went home, but she lived pretty close. And one day we decided to go shopping. So I said, I'll stop by and I'll pick you up. And so I stopped by, knocked on the door. Her mother opened the door and she looked a little horrified. The person did not look like me. And she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Hi, I'm Angela." I said, "I'm her friend. We've talked all semester long." And she looked at me and said, "Really? I didn't know you were Black." And she closed the door in my face. Wow. And so at that moment, I realized that life isn't always fair, that sometimes people have perceptions about you before and even after they get to meet you. And I wanted to be able to sort of make it as best a level playing field as I could. And so over the course of my career, being in HR, I have been blessed to be able to sit in rooms and places and spaces where I can advocate for people, where I can help allay people's perceptions, and really also help people understand without any negative intentions that we all have some types of unconscious bias, and to really take
Yeah,
a
for
step
sure.
back and understand what that impact can have on people. And so that's why I love the work that I do. And I am right now very fortunate that I very much enjoy the people I get to do it with.
I mean, it's I think that's quite, you know, thanks for sharing that story. I mean, it's quite a powerful story to share because it kind of defines well and talks and kind of reflects as well a little bit of the society uh, of the time, but kind of perhaps even now.
Yeah.
And it kind of it kind of I wanted to just kind of go and break it down a little bit, just from a curiosity point, is kind of so that relationship, that friendship that you had
Mhm.
with the other person, was it what was the result afterwards, after the encounter with the parent? Because that is a massive, I mean, rupture, I would imagine. What
My
what
friend
happened
was
afterwards?
my friend was horrified because that was the first time they had ever seen their mother in that light. They had thought that
Oh
their mother
wow.
was way so for them they were like, I'm sorry, this is the same person that we've been friends with for the last 8 months. What's the problem? And so I think our friendship remained intact. The relationship between her and her mom was quite strained because it led to other conversations about, well, what
Wow.
else don't you accept? What else don't you
Mhm.
like? And to really understand that the reason her mom had those perceptions was based in childhood, based on experiences that she had grown up with.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so again, it's trying to understand what the root cause is, and then understand, can you begin to change those perceptions and perhaps provide a different narrative.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk it in more detail about kind of the how to change that narrative, because from my understanding of the American culture is somewhat divided, and the Lives movement
Mhm.
sparked a bigger discussion that needed to happen. More, and what I mean, I'm interested in your Jake. What from that experience? I mean, uh, you know, which is quite, I would imagine, difficult to experience. Um, I don't know. You tell me. That's the what I kind of understand from what you described. I don't want to put
Yeah.
words in your mouth.
It,
uh,
it was hurtful, Pedro. But what is sad is, fast forward, and during I would say COVID, when people couldn't really get out and about, my son, we've lived in our same house for 21 years,
mhm,
so his way was to go out and jog and just be out and about. Well, my son's 6'4". He definitely
yeah.
didn't get my height. But one day he came in and he slammed the door and he went upstairs, and I could tell he was upset. And I said, what's going on? And he said, I am tired of people stopping me, asking me, what am I doing in this neighborhood? He's like, I live here.
Wow.
But the challenge is that we were the last three houses from the original people that had been there.
Mhm,
And I had to have that conversation that these people didn't grow up when you were 6 months old. They didn't see you grow up. These are new people. And to them, that is their perception. And it broke
mhm,
my heart that I had to help him understand something that my dad helped to help me understand so many years ago. So it's still, I say, prevalent today in just different
yeah.
ways.
Mhm. I mean, yeah. That is. It's the difficult. I would imagine it's very difficult to live in a society that is so divided. I mean, it's everywhere. It's not just in US.
Right.
It's just racism is everywhere. Prejudice is everywhere. It's just
And I think in different places it
mm,
looks different. In the US, it is based on race. I know in places in Europe, it's more based on religion, it's based on culture.
mhm,
So I would say to your second point that there are some types of prejudice, a little bit of everywhere. It just can look different.
yeah. I mean, we're going to touch about, you know, kind of leveling up the playing field,
Mhm.
changing the narratives, and how racism and prejudice affects the opportunities that to level that playing field. And I wanted to kind of bring the kind of now to the point where you have been working in HR,
Mhm.
for over 20 years, and I'm interested kind of how that journey brought you to, I guess, the cycling industry.
Mhm. So I started out in retail. So I've been blessed to work in HR in different industries, in retail and banking and manufacturing.
Hmm.
And what brought me to cycling was honestly the work. It just happened to be in cycling. And
Yeah.
so when I was interviewing with SRAM, I had an opportunity to do a little research. And so I had found an article, I think Pink Bike had done on
Hmm.
Ken Loosberg, who's our CEO. And what he talked about was, again, wanting to see more women and more people of color within the cycling industry because at the end of the day that benefits everyone. And having worked a lot in
Yeah.
China, he was a little surprised that there weren't as many women in leadership positions that he had been used to. Secondly, that
Mm.
there weren't a lot of programs to necessarily develop women in the US that he had been used to. And so I really appreciated that his commitment was to now coming into SRAM try to change that. And so that was quite refreshing to me.
Yeah.
And again, I've never done cycling, so I said, why not? But a lot of it was just based on what I had read about the culture of SRAM, how it got
Hmm.
started, and a lot of what the senior leadership felt and believed in and were trying to implement.
Yeah. I mean, well, that I guess that you having, 'cause so it's like breaking it down slightly here is like you researching the company
Mhm.
and like understanding, well, seems to be, from what I read, a welcoming space that is
Mhm.
trying to make strides into being more welcoming, uh, bringing more women of color into the workplace. Um, and it speaks volumes about the culture of
Mhm.
the workplace itself. And and this is it's there's research that states that inclusive business cultures lead leads to a kind of 59% increase in creativity, innovation, and
Oh,
openness at
definitely
large.
the
So
financials.
mm,
Absolutely. When you have a very perspective of voices coming together, your product is more powerful, your message is
mhm,
more powerful, and so that resonates with more customers. And at the same
yeah,
time, it is also helping your team members become more innovative. And so I think, any business that thinks that it's not important both from their team member perspective as well as their shareholders, I think is very much losing out because it's a win-win for everybody.
yeah. and and there is we kind of, I had the pleasure of hosting a live panel with in the Women in Cycling Summit series, and you mentioned about the intentionality of bringing the choices, bringing opportunities, and going where the people that you want to recruit are. And in an HR role, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is an opportunity to shape the culture, to consistently advocate for a broader recruitment policy that
Mhm.
brings more women, brings more people of color. And kind of what I'm trying to get is, uh, from your perspective, how do you define like healthy and inclusive culture?
When I think about an inclusive culture, a healthy culture, it's really a culture that has a commitment that engages. It engages with its team members in all aspects.
Mm,
You listen, you encourage them. You want them to bring their full self to work. You want them to be able to have an opportunity to stretch themselves to get out of
mhm.
their comfort zone, and you support people taking risks. So from the inside, when you think about a culture on the
Yeah.
inside of an organization, that's what it looks like. But at the same time, I think it's very important that an organization's workforce represents the communities in which that
Mm,
organization does business. And
yes.
so given that, cycling is all over the world, and it represents people of different ages, different ability, different sizes, we should have that inside to represent what we are trying
Mhm.
to attract.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, that speaks about building intentional strategies to want to
Mhm,
achieve equity, uh, represent the communities you serve, which, a lot of companies still don't, or choose to not to.
mhm, mhm.
Um, and kind of, and this is then kind of when you bring a diverse culture, workplace that represents the communities you serve, that end is these results are shown in the spreadsheets, in
Yeah,
the
and the
profits.
financials.
Yeah, as you mentioned, and that is again is something widely verified through statistics.
Mhm.
Um,
And at the end of the day, do we get it right every time? No, we
mm,
don't. But we do strive to listen to each other, to understand and respect different points of view, different perspectives,
yeah.
and to try to do better every time. It's all about when people know better, they try to do better.
hmm I mean, and for the people listening, you know, I have people that are listening that are CEOs, founders, people that work in the cycling industry, but also in cycling enthusiasts. So a wide spectrum. But
Mhm,
you know, for the people that are listening, in your opinion, what steps can a leader take to build a team that is representative of the
mhm.
community they serve?
I'd say the first thing is to think about where are you going. You called it, I go to different events. I call it fishing in other ponds. If you fish in the same pond, you're going to get the same fish. So what I challenged when I got to SRAM is, hey, if engineers are sort of the bread and butter of what we're trying to do, why don't we start looking to other places to find them? So the
Yeah.
SWE Conference, Society of Women Engineers, SHEP, the
hmm
Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. So again, there are diverse organizations that are out
hmm
there. When you go on college campuses, which many companies do for many of their entry level positions, start looking at some of the on campus groups that are there. You've got academic sororities and fraternities, you've got student groups. Some of these universities have cycling clubs. So it's just trying
Yeah.
to be as innovative as you are in your products, as you are in your strategy around how to bring
Mm.
more team members into the organization.
Yeah.
But it does,
Yeah.
as you say, come with intentionality.
Well, it's your words, not mine. uh,
Yes, that is true. I
uh,
did say that. It's intentionality and it is investment. I think sometimes we'll do something once, and if it doesn't go well, it's an easy excuse to say, "Oh, that didn't work." But yet, we'll continue on our R&D side to keep
mhm,
trying to fine tune different products and different things. To just really try to see if the strategy is there. And I think
yeah.
sometimes we don't give our recruiting and even team members, new hires, that same latitude or that same deference.
So, but with that, yeah, the thought comes to my mind is that and you mentioned about uh, kind of all of us have bias. All of us have stereotypes, bias that sometimes we're not aware of them. And kind of my thinking goes, okay, so you are being intentional about going to these establishing these partnerships, going to these events, going into recruitment fairs, and actively going to the places where the communities exist. But when it comes to recruiting, how do you kind of prepare or coach a team to be aware of their bias, if you will, so that they don't ignore a candidate because of the color of their skin, for instance?
Mhm.
I'm just kind of trying to play devil's advocate here, because we have all inherent bias, and some of them we're not aware of.
Mhm. Well, I think there's a couple things. So when we first are opening a position or we're talking about recruiting, we try to define what are the characteristics, what are the competencies that we are looking for in this role. And then we kind of meet with that hiring team and we kind of finalize that. So that's one step in the process, which is important because many times we've come to a hiring decision and I've had to step in and say, time out. You said that this role had to have X, Y, and Z. That person has none of it. I know, Ange, but they are awesome. So it's sometimes the candidate will connect with the hiring manager, and that hiring manager doesn't realize they're being a little biased because at the end of the day, we're comfortable with what we know and we
Yeah.
hire what we're used to. And so for some, this again is outside of a little bit of their comfortability. But I will say at SRAM, three things. One, we do lead with good intentions. And so we have a really good culture where we can play devil's advocate, where we can ask those questions and people will reflect. Number two, we do have training. So we do have training for anyone that is part of our recruitment or our interviewing process. And part of that does include unconscious bias training and some of the things to look for. And I would say the third piece is we always lead with asking our managers to really be intentional on hiring what they do not have. We don't need 5 of you. We don't need 4 of this type of person. So when you look at your team, what could you benefit from that you don't have today? And so again, do we get it right every time? No, but we do try to build some checks and balances into the process.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, we'll go back to the point about having a diverse team, whether it is women, men, men of color, women of color, heterosexual, wherever it is. Kind of that helps to have a broader perspective, create kind of a more inclusive narrative, whether it is through storytelling, whether it is through product development, because I have heard many times over products being developed without the consideration for women, for instance, and yet the products are for women. So
Right. Just because you make it smaller and pink does not make it for a woman.
exactly, yeah. You can't shrink it and pink it and sell it. It's not
There you go.
it's not how it works anymore.
But
And
even something as simple as, I think I had been with SRAM a week and they had a gentleman come in and do a presentation about how to bring more people of color into cycling. And so he asked the question, how many people cycle? Raise your hand. And I was saying, I can't. And I didn't raise my hand. And he's like, you don't cycle? I said, I can't find helmets to fit my braids. I said, by the time I get a helmet, it's down to here. And he's like, oh. So I'm putting that out there to a lot of helmet manufacturers, but it has gotten better over the last 3 years. It started on Etsy, this tiny little shop, but that's where you can see a lot of innovation with people that are going to a marketplace designed for them. Because Etsy is kind of these little mini businesses, but it is an opportunity for much larger scale businesses to take note of how they're reaching different target audiences.
yeah, I mean, it's something that it's a good point, that one, because about kind of companies, people experience those pain points and not having
Mhm.
a brand, a product that serves them, and in a very entrepreneurial fashion, you
Mhm.
develop and create this product, and you serve that
Right.
kind of that population that requires the product, and kind of it's sometimes global brands. I don't want to excuse global brands here, but I'm trying to say is that sometimes they see it, well, this is not of enough of
Right.
a demand for us to invest money and time into developing a product like this, so we're not going to do it. We're going to wait until the little entrepreneurial one man or one woman business does it, and then when they are set up, then we will consider it again.
Right.
And I see that a lot especially in kids range, where they're
Mhm.
kind of for cycling specifically.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of, you mentioned earlier on about the partnerships that you establish, about the events you go to. You mentioned just before we started recording that you are now attending the Women's Engineering Society event.
Yes.
And um, what practical what practical lessons do you get from attending these events and
Mhm.
partnering with these societies?
I think for us, it helps us do two things. One, when I bring my female engineers there, it
Mm-hmm.
gives them an opportunity to pour into young women who are looking and aspiring to be engineers. When we put out product launches and when we win races and you see the women behind the components of those products, again, it helps young girls know, hey, when you come to us, you're going to be part of some really big products and some really innovative solutions. So I think it helps our female engineers aspire to empower, engage other young female engineers. I
Mm-hmm.
think it also helps them give back to, because when they were coming into this field, I have engineers that say I was number three at SRAM, and now we've got, 35, but it helps them see over time that you are part of making a difference in this company, in our culture, in how we go
Yeah.
forward. And to them, that's very important. I think it
Mm-hmm.
also helps us within the industry put a stake in the ground that this is our commitment and that this is something that we're gonna do.
Yeah.
We're actually for the first time doing a tech talk on our new,
Oh
I believe,
wow.
our drivetrain and some other innovations that we put out last year that these female engineers had a hand in. And I think again
Mm.
that's very important for women to feel inspired that it just takes one person saying, well, what if we did it differently this way? And unlike some of those bigger companies, we're willing to take a risk. We give our people a bit of leeway in trying to put their innovative ideas to the test. Get some of your team
Yeah.
members collaborate, and let's see what works. And I think that's what makes SRAM so successful.
Mm. Mm. I think that's, yeah. Oh well, that kind of, that seems to be an aspect of innovation and kind of encouraging innovation and
Mhm.
having different teams, different cultures working together. That also speaks about the importance of kind of encouraging, one, teams to take ownership, two, encourage them to fail so that they
Yeah.
can start learning and develop the products differently. So that if you obviously, if you do everything the same way over and over again, it doesn't guarantee you success. It just means that you're just repeating what you're doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
And again, we talked earlier, fresh ideas through diverse voices, right? If you have the
mhm,
same people that are coming at a problem or looking at something from the exact same way, you're not going to get a different perspective. I think building products and processes in different ways based on other people's experiences and what they've learned can help.
yeah.
The, again, failure. somebody told me a long time ago, so I didn't create this. First attempt in learning. Fail is not bad. That's your first attempt, and you keep doing different iterations. But I will say, Pedro, with all of that, one of the foundational pieces that a company has to have is psychological safety. People have to feel that it's okay to make mistakes. It's
Yeah,
okay
for sure.
that every idea isn't going to come to fruition.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's something that, well, a lot of big tech companies encourage their teams to do, to have, even celebrate failure, so that
Yeah.
failure becomes normalized and is not seen as saying, oh, I'm fearful for my job, I don't want to risk
Right.
going too far astray
Mhm.
from what needs to be done. And yeah, well, it's an interesting one, because especially in the tech world and
Mhm.
innovation, that is very much needed.
Mhm.
You need to fail fast to
Yes.
develop fast as well.
Yes. That's the whole point of
Um,
innovation.
yeah. And I wanted to kind of, return slightly, because I want to bring back the conversation um, back to the how kind of the lack of inclusivity that has been kind of, well, the fact of the cycling industry in the past, and the kind of also the kind of connect your experience um, as a fresh woman, and kind of put this together. And I kind of want to understand, from your perspective, that experience that you had, and it's a, I don't want to generalize here, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that is probably happening over and over again, to many people of color, with like facing prejudice, racism, because of the color of their skin. And I'm wondering, does that then hold back women engineers of color that want to pursue a career in, for instance, at SRAM or in the tech business? Does that hold them back? What is your perspective on that?
I think it's twofold. I think one, it's women in general. I think that
Mm-hmm.
women of color, perhaps it's a little bit different too. But I think if people could take a step back, and if people could find mentors, people to help them understand what I call the lay of the land. Most of these roles are in corporate environments, and corporate is not an easy place to navigate. There is no rule book that says when you're in a corporate environment, this is how
Yeah.
you're meant to behave. And so I think many times we don't understand that people are coming to us from different experiences, meaning they might be first generation college, they might not, know how to navigate different spaces. I once had a person that worked for me, and we were going out to do an acquisition, and there was going to be about 40 people there, and we were going to go to a big meal. And so I was taking her out to kind of prep her for that, because this was her first real job, and she hadn't done it. And so we're at a restaurant, and we're ordering, and it was just her and I at the time, and she was very hesitant, and I said, well, what do you want to eat? And she didn't
Mhm.
say anything. I said, talk to me, what's going on? And she's like, I've never been out to a restaurant. I don't know, I'm scared, like I don't know how to order,
Right.
I don't know what utensils. And I was like, okay, fine. So for the next 2 hours, I had the waitress staff bring different things she could taste. We learned different utensils, but something that simple, we might not understand if a person constantly says, no, I don't want to go out to eat with the team, or I don't, they just
Mm.
might not be comfortable in those situations. So that's one thing. I think trying to get to know people, trying to understand where they've been, and giving people an opportunity at a clean slate at first
Yeah.
chance, I think will be very helpful. I think, secondly, when I spoke more broadly for women, at the end of the day, I think women, we have to figure out how to encourage women to feel that they can have a normal balance. You can have a family, you can have a career, you can take time off, will get you back on track. And I think that is the biggest opportunity that we have, is how to help women sort of navigate when they're at a certain point in their career, or that they are at intersections of making decisions. Because for some, if their
Mhm.
career is what is driving them and they feel that they can't miss a beat, then they
Yeah.
might, at that point, not have a family, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But I will say that for both people of color and women in general, allyship is the biggest win we can have. It's not our voices that count. We need men like you, Pedro, more men to
Mm.
advocate for us and for things that they can see their wives, their sisters, their daughters need, to
Yeah.
help them in their career journey.
Mhm. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, it's, I think it
I
kind
hope
of,
that
that
answered your
example.
question.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it kind of, it shines a light on the fact that it's kind of, you know, being, it's not easy to kind of start from a clean slate, and kind of you have to have a lot of, I guess, self-awareness to recognize that, you know, someone's experience is not your experience,
Mhm.
and that you need to be curious. You need to ask questions,
Mhm.
and yes, you will ask questions that will sound silly and will make you feel embarrassed, but is also in part of the learning process,
Right.
because my experience is different from your experience, and
Mhm.
we probably have something to learn from each other.
Right.
Um,
And I
and
think too that there are things that are culturally that have gotten in the way. And what I mean is, if you
mhm,
think about certain words that have been weaponized of recent, at the end of the day, a word like privilege, we all have privilege in some form or another. I was
yeah,
privileged to grow up, for the most part, in a two-family home. I was privileged to always have a roof over my head. But when we say that word privilege, there sometimes is an immediate negative connotation, that where
right,
a person can understand the privilege they have and use it to help people from that perspective, they then can sometimes feel they have to defend what that privilege is, and how or why they have it. So I think
mhm,
too, at some point, we need to kind of let a word be a word, and as you said, really focus on being curious, asking questions, not making assumptions, and taking whatever leverage you have and using it to help other people.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's it kind of, I think fear plays a part in this. In kind of, you mentioned privilege. I think fear and kind of don't can yeah fear of not understanding whether what are the other, for instance, people of black people experiences of growing up. It's very much different from white people growing up, because there are kind of the racial uh kind of the racial aspect is there. You have also all the history that comes with it, um, and it kind of brings it back as well to your son experience of running around the neighborhood and being, well, I deduce, being confronted by people of, I'm sure, I'm imagining white people that are asking him, what are you doing here? Why are you
Yeah,
running around my block?
right.
And that, I think that comes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that comes from a place of fear, of not knowing, and kind of also fear of um, losing something, rather than thinking I'm gaining something by having a diverse
Yes,
neighborhood, by having a diverse
absolutely.
work culture, because you know it's easy to think about, like, I'm not talking about now I'm talking about like the kind of ideals of, when you have an idea that is shown to you in black and white, it's easy to understand. But if you start looking at the nuances of that, and you start going into the gray area where you need to understand that not everything is as like positive and negative,
Right.
it's more nuanced.
There are nuances. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So it
Yes.
becomes it's more difficult and requires a lot more effort. But then
Right.
but that's how you grow. Sorry, I wanted like a bit of abstract tangent here, but
No. I mean, but you're right. At the end of the day, we somehow have gotten to a place where, equity is a bad thing because it means if you get something, I'm losing something versus a
mhm,
mindset of high tides lift all boats. Everybody
yeah,
wins. And somehow we've got to get back to that piece where we're not just looking out for the benefit to me, but how does it benefit all of us?
yeah,
And
exactly,
that's
yeah,
that's what I love when you're talking about high performing cultures, you're talking about high performing teams. It's the leaders that can shape that culture that we all win together. We're all rowing in
mhm,
the same direction. And yes, we all may look different. Some may row faster, some may row slower, but we're working together as a team to make sure we all get to that place that we're trying to get to.
mhm, yeah, definitely. I mean, and I kind of wanted to kind of from your experience, from the from your conversations that you have with the team at SRAM, what, in your perspective, what barriers do women of color still face when entering the cycling industry? Might be for some might be the first time, for some might be the second, third time. From your personal experience, what do you think are the kind of the main barriers?
I think one is perception, that
Hmm.
Black women or people of color in general don't ride bikes and we don't cycle and things like that. And I think one, it's understanding that cycling is sometimes an expensive sport. Bikes
Yes.
aren't cheap, it's all relative. I think two, understanding depending on where people have lived, they might not have had safe roads to ride on. If you think about some of where people and neighborhoods are sometimes situated, you might
Yeah.
find that a lot of industrial and different things are on one side of a community than the other. And so I think the barrier to entry could be financial, it could be access to safe roads. I think it could be finding someone to help navigate how to buy a bike. I mean, just to get
Hmm.
started, knowing what questions to ask. So, lack of resources might be another. But I'm happy to say I was pleasantly surprised that once I joined SRAM and I saw all of these BIPOC groups, cycling groups, and started joining some of them on Facebook and some of these other places that they have resources that are out there, that there are bike shops that are willing to kind of do these little workshops to get 5 or 6 women together
Yeah.
and walk them through how to buy a bike. So I would say the more that we can do to raise awareness, to provide resources, to make the entry less financially prohibitive, and then
Hmm.
to promote and share that these groups are out there and help them resource and network. And I love SRAM's community program because that's a way that we can do that. I love SRAM's ambassador program because, again, you've got these communities that are coming together that are being very intentional about trying to bring other groups along.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. It's I mean, yeah, that's so important. I've kind of in a I think in a kind of outreach fashion, go to the communities, help them, but also support them through kind of whether it is financially, because yeah, the barriers to entry alone are a problem, and also when you factor that, then social
Mhm.
barriers that are some visible, some others aren't visible,
Yeah,
also presents a barrier.
yeah. And I would even say if you took it to the pro cycling, I still see that women aren't getting the same visibility and sponsorship that the men get. So, how can we help again increase more support for women in terms of media coverage, in terms of sponsorship from different
Yeah,
corporations, so that again there is this visibility. I mean, think about the WNBA. You now finally have this fire in the US about
yeah,
women's basketball because of a few stars, but who use their platform and who are pulling in those sponsorship, that viewership. And I think now that we have more focus on the Tour de Femme and some of these other great
yes,
races that women are in, that will inspire a new generation of young women to want to be cyclists.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. I mean, through, I mean, the uh, Tour de France Femme of X Swift has been a game changer, I think, in
Hmm.
raising that profile, raising viewership, kind of elevated all of the platform for women's cycling.
Hmm.
That's been very important. I wanted to kind of now bring it now to kind of a personal level,
Hmm.
and this is, you know, I guess you are in the you now in the kind of driving the change in a very purposeful way, and I think it's it's important that there is a motivation, there is a purpose, and there's like an objectives to that. And for you personally, how do you stay motivated or energized, kind of doing the work you do?
So it's kind of like life. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So fits and starts. But no, honestly, Pedro, I am motivated because I have seen the impact, even small things that people can do, and how that has impacted other people to the point where it can be generationally life changing. And
Mm,
so being able to see someone feel that they are now empowered to drive their professional career, to sort of be the master a little bit of their own fate. I think that's powerful for me. I that warms my heart because I have seen people that have, I don't want to say they struggled in their performance. They struggled because they weren't seen. They weren't
yeah.
visible. There was no one advocating for them. So to be
Hmm.
able to go into a room and raise people's awareness, or again bring things to light where people can understand, hey, maybe we're being a little too harsh on this person. I did an exercise once, so I had just, and I'll try to make it as anonymous as I can, but I was in
Go for
a
it.
leadership role. I had been with that organization for 2 weeks. And we were doing a talent review. So talent review is when the leaders come in and they review the performance and potential of their
Okay.
direct reports. And so again, I'd been here 2 weeks, so I'm looking at a book of the talent profile cards, and I'm listening for about an hour and a half of them again throw around different nouns and adjectives around people. And finally I said, can we do a break? Can we just have a 10-minute break? So everybody went on break. I walked up to the board and I had 2 columns of words. And when they came back in, I said, we're going to do a little exercise. I said, do you see the column on the left? And they're like, yeah. And it was words like collaborative, innovative, risk taker, things
Hmm.
like that. On the other side, aggressive, not a team player, argumentative. I said, now, here's what I have noticed over the last 90 minutes. These words are for these people. These words represented these people. Now, why don't you go through the talent cards and tell me what you think I'm saying? And it
Mm,
literally was like, oh. So again, it's having an opportunity to help people on that journey of self discovery that I know ultimately is impacting where people are sort of able to move themselves. That's why I do it. That's what
mhm.
motivates me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, this kind of it shows the impact that kind of the day to day has on people's lives and
Yeah.
beyond, as you mentioned. And kind of on building on that, coming up through the corporate ladder, if you will, for you, did you have mentors? Did you have allies that kind of helped you through that journey or visualize the kind of the potential?
Absolutely. I'd like to say I am the sum of all the people that stopped and poured into me, which is why I
Mhm.
am very much wanting to pour into other people. Some were very much more upfront about it, like you're my assignment for the next 6 months, while others were a little bit more behind the scenes and encouraging. But here's what I did learn from one of my best bosses who are still friends today. And what she told me is your leaders will always believe in you more quickly than you will ever believe in yourself. So when I
Mhm.
give you a challenging assignment, it's not because I think you're going to fail. It's because I'm giving you an opportunity to fly. And she's like, so
Right.
don't push back when I say, oh, go in and present in front of the board. Like I'm sending you out to a firing squad. I'm going to help you, but I know you can do it. And
Yeah.
so I think that is what I try to also tell people when I have direct reports. I'm like, you can do it. And they're like, yes, you can. I'll be here to support you. But I would not be where I am today, both personally or professionally, if I had not had people along the way.
Mhm.
It truly, to me, does take a village.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's I have a young son, and the saying of "it takes a village to grow a child, to raise a child." Sorry, it's very much applied
Yeah,
here as well.
yeah.
I mean, it speaks to, it speaks to the fact that having someone or a group of people kind of just supporting you, steering you, or just giving advice helps you massively. Uh, whether there's in confidence, and see opportunities that you probably wouldn't see. And I think that when you start putting that into, uh, you know, how do we get uh, better representation for women? How do we get more people of color working here? That those mentor programs, those allyships, then come into play because kind of help steer or open the doors that perhaps wouldn't necessarily be there or open. I don't know, but it's definitely a case with that in your kind of taking your example where someone that has benefited from that is now giving back, and that's it's always
Paying it forward.
exactly paid forward. Very good,
Yeah,
very good.
yeah. But I will say this too, being on the receiving end of all of that, I don't want it to sound like everything was all, as we call it, unicorns and rainbows. There were times I had to take feedback that I might not have liked. But at
Mm.
the end of the day, what I try to tell people, because I have worked in so many companies, large and small, that have a very difficult time of giving team members feedback. Feedback is a gift. Now, it might be one you kind of open and wrap,
Yeah.
put back in the corner for a moment. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what I said earlier. When people know better, they try to do better. And so we as leaders do not do ourselves or our team members any service or any benefit by not truly giving them skill-based feedback on how they can do better, where we do see
Mhm.
gaps, especially if and when we know where they are trying to go. And sometimes it might be it's a different culture or it's a different perspective. And I'm like, I get that, but then go help yourself find someone to hope you have that conversation. Don't just walk away from it.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
sometimes, especially for people of color, there's a little bit of awkwardness on, well, I don't know how to say it this way, or I don't want to, make an assumption. Well, then ask someone. But again, don't just leave it sitting there on on the table without addressing it.
Yeah. Very good. So, and kind of building on that, again on a very personal note, what does success look like to you?
Success to me personally is defined by just looking back and reflecting on, again, what have I done? Have I helped other people? It's making sure that I have done good with the time I've had and with the opportunities I've been given, that I've been able to help other people sort of move personally, professionally into better places and spaces.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that well, it's brilliant because it I know, I guess it speaks to the nature, to your personality. It speaks as well to the ambition, and kind of the. I mean, when I ask this question to to all of my guests, everyone has a different answer, and I think it's always boils down to the impact that you want to have
Mhm,
personally
mhm,
on of the people around you, to yourself, to the communities you work with, and there's always is always positive.
mhm, mhm.
No one is like selfish to the point of no, I just care about me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think it speaks to the human nature of wanting to bond with others, wanting to connect with others, and kind of
It's
and as
relationships.
exactly,
It's
yes,
meant to be
yeah,
built, not transactional. I mean, I still am in visiting and in contact with my very first boss who lives in
wow,
Florida. I've got two, three other bosses who are now CHROs that I, constantly, not constantly, but we have dinner at least a couple times a year. So to me, that's the part that I feel
mhm,
like I've been successful. I had a boss that took me to three of her positions with her. So she becomes
wow,
CHRO, called me 3 months later, like, I need to come over here and work with me. So again, it's
that's
those
brilliant.
things. It spoke to not only the personal relationship, but for me, the quality of the work that I was able to do that stood on its own.
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
believe that people can be friends and work together. But yeah, that's how I define success and my ability to impact others, impact
mhm,
organizations. It's all about leaving, I call it a thumbprint, a legacy behind that
yeah,
stands the test of time for a bit.
brilliant, brilliant. Oh, that's such a powerful answer. I wanted now to bring to the point of the podcast, where I started a tradition where every guest leaves a question to my next guest, not knowing who they are. And the question that was left for you is the following. Um, so let me read it out. Um, how are you trying to deliver your message to reach that one person?
Wow. I would say um, doing things like this, which is totally out of my comfort zone, going on a panel, totally out of my comfort zone. I would say trying to do things differently. I would also say trying to take that message and pour it into others to use a multiplier effect, not being
Mhm.
dependent upon just me to deliver it, but trying to plant seeds that it might be years from now that grow, but trying
Yeah.
to plant those seeds in others as well.
Mhm.
I hope
Yeah.
so. I don't know if I can have a question that good. That's a really good question.
I mean, I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it, but it's um, it's kind of a it's I'm kind of it's that aspect of you know sharing that message, pouring that message onto someone else, and that kind of because that will create a ripple effect, you know. And you mentioned the seed might not grow today, might not grow tomorrow, but is there and will, if nurtured, will blossom eventually. And it's kind of speaks as well to my own experience of recently becoming a father. Uh, it that that the nurturing of a child, you are pouring into them, and they will develop. Not you don't know how, but they will develop, and those seeds that you planted will start to blossom at some point. And if
I
that
mean, having
applies,
20, 24, 21, it takes a while, especially through your kids. But you have to have faith that you planted those seeds. And you know what? I will say happily, they do surprise you. They will show you that they did take root. It just takes a while.
brilliant.
Mhm.
So, well, it's definitely a long game plan. Brilliant. So, Angela, what question would you like to leave to my next guest?
Last one was really good. I don't know if this is a good one, but I will say, looking back to wherever your guest is, what would they tell themselves 20 years ago? So today, what would I have told myself to sort of be very more to try to be a bit earlier, more intentional and reflective of things. Because again, depending on where you are, when you're younger, your priorities are different, your
Yes,
motivations are different. And sometimes I do occasionally reflect back on a few missed opportunities to maybe impact someone. I didn't have enough patience. I didn't give them enough time. So what would I tell my younger self 20 years ago?
brilliant. Brilliant question. It welcomes a lot of reflection, that's for sure. So it's another very thought-provoking question. Brilliant. So with that, I wanted to thank you for your time, Angela. It's been a privilege sharing this space with you and hearing the purpose that you have and ambitions, and how you are, changing the culture and improving, if you will, the culture at SRAM. And yeah, I hope that this conversation is going to resonate with people listening as much as it resonated with me. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And as much as I am changing the culture, I have a whole lot of people that are changing it with me. So thank you for giving us the opportunity as well.
Wow, what an incredible conversation with Angela Kraft Williams. I hope this episode made you pause and reflect about how much stronger our communities, our teams become when everyone feels seen, included, and invited to take part. Angela reminded us that equity isn't about taking something away. It's about lifting everyone up. It's about looking around and asking, who is not in the room yet? And what can I do to open that door? So here is my invitation to you. Think about one action you can take this week to make your circle, your workplace, your club, your community a little more inclusive. And if this conversation got you thinking about cycling, leadership, allyship, equity, inclusion, diversity, please share it with 2 friends who might love it too. And my final ask, make sure to follow Ride to Success wherever you listen to the podcast so you never miss another episode. Thanks for listening.